Hey everyone. So, as I'm sure some of you might know, about a month ago I did a QnA announcement video for 5,000 subscribers, telling you all to type any questions you would like to ask me in the comments for a future Q&A. Now that I have hit 5k and 6k, it's about time I make the video. Thank you guys so much for all the awesome questions. I'm really excited to answer some in particular, and I appreciate the thought some of you invested in this. Sorry if you expected an actual video for the next upload, but I did promise this, and hopefully you guys can enjoy it and learn more about me. And my next upload will be sure not to disappoint. There really isn't much else to say in the intro, unlike most of my other videos, so I will keep it concise. I do want to mention quickly that I will not be including every question, as there are a majority of jokes that were posted, and I'm fine with them, I just don't want to put them in the real Q&A for obvious reasons. I might put a few joke questions in there if I think they'd be funny to add, though. I also might not include your question if it was too personal, or it was something I don't feel like answering publicly. And if you ask multiple things in one comment, I will probably answer some but not all. But other than that, I will do my best to include everything. One last thing, if your question is a repeat, which was a frequent occurrence, I will only answer it once, so if you don't see yours it might have already been addressed. There were over 300 questions and I obviously can't answer them all, so I missed yours and I'm really sorry. You probably had a repeat question and I need to cut some off. With all that said, I hope you enjoy. Okay, so our first question is from Bones is Dumb. They actually asked 3 questions, only 2 of which I'm going to answer, as the last one is something that other people asked about in more detail. Their first question is what is my hardest demon, and the answer to that is Big Boom by Penuto. I spent about 5,000 attempts to beat this on 60Hz around a year ago, and if I really wanted to, I'm confident I could beat an extreme today, but I don't feel too much drive to actually play the game anymore, even though I'm hoping I can one day. Their second question is what I am interested in doing after school, and right now my dream job is to be an English teacher. I'm sure some of you can probably see this based on what I do here on YouTube, and I've had this dream for a few years now, and it's something I really want to make a reality. English is my favorite class, and I love to read and write a ton. Thanks for the questions. Up next is a question from Random Guy 555, who asked what it feels like to be the creator of the best level in the game, Acropolis Circles. Honestly, it feels really good. Me and my team really poured our souls into this project, and it came from a simple concept around a year ago to a reality that became known as the greatest and most ambitious feat achieved in GD history. I appreciate your recognition of this legendary level, and thank you for the question. The next comment is a quite lengthy string of questions from Skilledfully. I'm only going to answer a few of these as there's a lot and I need to keep it short, but I definitely appreciate the effort here. Their first asks who are some people I look up to, and the answer that stands out to me the most is my parents. This might sound kinda stupid, but they really set a great example for me and help me whenever I need it, as well as help me understand stuff long term, even if I don't see it in the moment. I also look up to a lot of my friends, and I kinda have a mutual idolization between quite a few of them. The next question is how I got into documentary style content, and I think the obvious answer to that is from C1997, as I have basically emulated his editing style and I have done my best to improve where he lacked, most notably scripting. I do think of my actual content as very different from his, though, except maybe the history videos, even though I also do those in a much different format than he did. The final question is who are some people I want to thank for 5k subs in my YouTube channel in general, and those would be all my friends who supported me when basically no one else did. And you all know who you are. I appreciate the effort you put into these questions skillfully, and I also thank you for the kind note at the end, it means a lot. Up next is one from 13 Spades. Their question asks if I know a certain Bellatrix, with a cool X of course. Next is a question from VAR username, who asks if I shower facing toward or away from the shower head. If I'm honest, I never really thought about it before, but it stuck in my head while I was showering the other day and I realized I do both. I tend to kinda switch back and forth between the two. Thanks for the question. Next up are a few questions from Dram Panada, and the first is where I'm from. You can probably expect this based on my complete lack of any accent, but I'm from the United States, more specifically New England. To answer their other questions, my favorite food is apple pie if we can count desserts, but if not, I would have to go with cheeseburgers. I'm not a big car person to answer their question on what my dream car would be, so I haven't thought about it this a ton, but I'd love to have a Nissan Armada. Thank you. The next ones are from Miz, who asked first what inspired me to start making YouTube videos. I think a lot of people are going to anticipate me saying something like C inspired me to begin doing YouTube. And while I think him and other GD content having existed gave me the confidence that it would be consumed and the style for my work, I honestly decided to start making videos of my own accord. As I said earlier, I love to write, and prior to doing YouTube I wrote little essays all the time on various topics in GD, such as ranking my favorite levels. I never shared these with anybody, but when I made my list on the best levels of 2.1, I had the idea to publish it to the wider community. I doubted people would read papers or articles written about Geometry Dash, so I decided to learn how to edit and turn my lists into a more common medium, YouTube videos. That's essentially how I started out, and I think me having done this in essence since I started getting invested in the community years ago is what makes it come kinda naturally. I took a while to answer that one, so I'm just gonna skip to the third question, which is one that I think is also interesting to answer. This is if I'm going to stick to my main type of content or start to branch out to more original ideas. And if I'm honest, I always do my best to come up with original video concepts. I think stuff like my flow state video and creativity in Geometry Dash are my most unique. And though I can't produce stuff like that all the time, those are my biggest efforts to bring something new to the table of GD YouTube. Anyway, thank you for the questions. Up next are some questions from Matthew No. His first is if I ever got to see the golden age of Geometry Dash, when every play was at the center of the community, and unfortunately I have not been in the game that long. They also ask if I plan on getting a new profile picture, which I don't, and lastly they are wondering if I'm happy. To be honest, I can't really complain. Despite my workload steadily increasing from both school and YouTube, I would say I'm in a good place mentally. So yeah, I'm happy. Thanks for the questions. Up next is a question from Lazaroy, who asks if I think Geometry Dash will ever change in terms of creativity while creating. I honestly think that the trend of originality in levels has already begun, and though we do still see CP grinders and glow-styled basic levels, we have definitely seen a rise in the movement of more art-focused Geometry Dash works alongside original stuff. This is a shift in tide that I fully support, and if you pay attention you will probably notice that despite the amounts of generic levels still being a strong number, the amount of more original and expressive works has definitely started to steadily grow. Thank you for the interesting question. Next up are some questions from KJ Endurance. First off, they asked my opinion on players like UFWM and other challengeless grinders. I think that what they do is really cool, and I like how that community has established themselves as a fresh drain of Geometry Dash. I don't have much other to say than that, honestly. They also ask how long it takes me to usually make my videos, which is a question that's hard to answer, as it really depends on the video. I'd say it takes a minimum 25 hours per video, and at max 75. Most of this effort is put into writing and revising the script, but I plan to balance that out and put more time in editing as I perfect my writing. Their other questions are who are my favorite Twitch highlight YouTubers, and if I plan on beating any extremes. If I'm honest, I don't really watch too many GD highlight reels, but I do find a pester rather entertaining. And about me beating extremes, I do want to do one day, but I have no idea when that will be. Thank you for the questions. Deride is the next person who asked a question, and they are wondering what my favorite games outside of Geometry Dash are. This is probably quite obvious, but I adore Pokemon. And though my competitive battling days are over, I still frequently replay old games and do cage lock randomizers with my friend. I also love Terraria. It's a game I've played since its very early updates, and I play a lot of Hypixel on Minecraft. Undertale is probably my favorite game of all time, and I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about it, but it definitely holds a special place in my heart. I've also recently played Among Us with my friends as a fun pastime, but other than that, I would say those are the only games I mainly like to play lately. Thank you for the question. Xpixel asked the next questions, wondering who got me into Geometry Dash and what my first impressions of the game were. My friend and neighbor was the first person who introduced me to the game, showing me on his iPad, and I found the game very fun at first. I remember the first day, I took my iPad and progressed on Finger Dash all the way up to 21% before I would go home and download the game for myself. I thought it was pretty cool, and I would steadily get hooked and start to invest myself in the community, and the rest is history. Thanks for the questions, Xpixel. Blacklight 2000 asked the next few questions. The first one is what my real name is, which I don't exactly feel comfortable disclosing, but the next asks about how I got the name Norkbork. Strap in, cause this is a pretty wild story. So, back in 2010, me and my friend would play Minecraft on our iPads, and we had a pretty awesome survival world going. Back on Pocket Edition, you could change your name on MC to whatever you wanted, and we would spend stupid amounts of time thinking of fake IGNs for if we were Minecraft YouTubers. Despite my real name not being Nick, I eventually came up with the alias NickBrick21, and that was what I decided my new IGN was going to be. I eventually would realize some years on that it was stupid as a nickname, as my name literally is not Nick, so I would make the decision to change it up. My method was pretty simple, just change the way I pronounced it. If you shift the pronunciation, you can turn NickBrick21 into Norkbork21. Eventually, I would shave off the 21, and that's the story of how I got my name. Thank you for the question. Spyrix asked the next question. This is one that's pretty easy for me. What is my favorite Pokemon game and generation? To me, the obvious choice is Gen 5, for its quality, music, visuals, and especially story. I could go on for an entire rant as to why Gen 5's 2 games are the best in the franchise, but I will spare you the details. Out of Black and White and Black and White 2, I would say I prefer Black and White more, but they are both magnificent games and they're the top 1 and 2 for me. Thanks for the awesome question. Up next is a question from MK Panda. They ask if I ever expected to get 5k subs, and what made me start on YouTube. I already answered the latter, but the first one is one I have not yet addressed. Honestly, I had no idea what to expect when it came to how fast my YouTube would grow, and I think initially I expected to get 5k at least one day, but I honestly anticipated the wait to be 2 to 3 years if I ever wanted to achieve that. However, I managed to hit it in only 10 months of serious uploads, and it's all thanks to you guys. Thanks for the question, MK Panda. Orange asked the next question, which is what my main goal for YouTube is. I haven't really thought about this much, as I don't really have a set idea of what I want out of this, but I guess it's just to share my thoughts on topics in the community via a common medium like I said earlier. I've gotten so much more out of it though, from meeting new people to a lot of personal growth. It just felt right to do YouTube, and that's why I went through with it. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Thank you so much. Up next are a few questions from Ketrick. The first one they ask is if I ever plan on becoming more than a layout creator, and the answer to that is yes. I already dabble in creating a fair bit, having built a few art end screens which I show up on the screen now as I talk, and I'm also working on a solo level. This likely won't be out for a long time though, but I might show a bit of it on screen here as well. About what equipment I use to make videos, it's nothing fancy. The most advanced thing I use is my mic, which is a Blue Yeti, but other than that I edit with DaVinci Resolve and that's basically it. Thank you for the questions. The next questions are from GDJG789. The first they ask is how long I have played GD for, and it's been almost 4 years now. I started in very early 2.1, close to the day the update got released. I've done my best to catch up in the community's history prior to this, though, and I think I'm overall pretty well informed. They also ask what I personally think my best video is, and in my opinion, my best execution-wise is my latest one, Who's the Best Player in Geometry Dash, but concept-wise it's either my flow state or creativity in Geometry Dash. But yeah, I already answered who inspired me, so that's all from GDJG. Thank you for the questions. Our next question is from CCar, and they ask what keeps motivating me to play Geometry Dash. Well, I love the community, so I would say that's definitely a big part of it, alongside my YouTube. I also just love building stuff in the editor and playing the game from time to time, and it's definitely something I don't plan on losing interest in anytime soon. Thanks for the question. Next are a few from Ahoden Williams. I won't answer all of these, as there's a lot, but they're definitely all very good questions. The first I want to answer is about where the line between a meaningful GD level and artistic GD level is, and when something is a mash of random concepts. I think that to get an artistic work in Geometry Dash, you have to have an end goal of a feeling or theme to convey. Something like Save As does that well. On the other hand, something like SFW by Hayavel has no real meaning despite it being a cool visual experience. Don't get me wrong, SFW is a very cool level, but it is not really as artistic as a lot of people say. That's just my input, but there are other ideas out there. They also ask what my biggest passions are, and I would say definitely reading, writing, music, and drawing. I also love playing cello, which I have done for over 7 years now. The final question they ask is my favorite books and songs. Night by Elie Wiesel is one of the most terrifyingly good things I've ever read, and I also love Catch-22, 1984, To Kill a Mockingbird, and so many more. My favorite artists at the current moment are Periphery, Imperial Circus Dead Decadence, Eden, Camellia, DM Dokuro, Eminem, and Kendrick Lamar, but I have tens upon tens of musicians I adore. My favorite song at the moment is either Blood Eagle, It's Only Smiles, or Reptile, all by Periphery. But yeah, thank you for the questions, I hope my answer satisfied you. TrickyB89 asked the next one, wondering what one of my favorite levels of all time is. I would definitely say Nightlife is the masterpiece to me, and it will always be one of my favorites. Short answer, I know, but thank you for the question. Up next are a few questions from Scruffy. First they ask what mouse I use, and I use the Razer Death Adder Elite. It's nothing fancy, but it's affordable and works well for GD alongside other games, especially Minecraft. It has a nice bulge in the middle that fits my hand really well, and I can see why some people might not like it because of that if you have smaller hands, but it's a nice compliment from me. They next asked if I play Among Us, and yes I do. I play with friends every once in a while, and I really enjoy it even if I'm not the best at the game. The final thing they ask is if I like gorillas, and while my sister has tried to get me to listen to them before, I've never been a huge fan. That was a while ago, though, and if I really wanted to I could probably get into their music now. Anyway, yeah, thank you for the questions. Golden Crystal asked the next question, which is what are some tips I can give for making good layouts? There's no formula to make a good layout, and it's honestly about getting experience and learning what works for you. So the first thing I would recommend is to keep building even if what you're making isn't some groundbreaking masterpiece. The second thing I think not enough people do is to their finished products is to go back and actually playtest it. What I like to do is finish a section, move on to the next, then after I finish the whole layout, come back to it and refine it. You'll find that if you do this, you'll be refreshed when it comes to the part, and you'll know what you need to do to fix it. Those are the best recommendations I could give, and beyond that it's up to you. Thanks for the question. For the next question, TNT Minecart asks if I ever plan on uploading non-GD content, and what it would be if I was to. I probably won't ever upload non-GD content, but if I were to do it, it would likely be Pokemon videos that would talk about a bunch of different aspects of the games, as that's something I'm really interested in, alongside maybe some Minecraft Hypixel videos. Those are the main things I could see myself doing, with Minecraft being the most likely. And who knows, if for some reason you guys want to see me play Bed Wars in a real commentated video, I could do it. I play all the time, and commentating is something I would probably enjoy doing. That'll likely not happen though, and for the most part I plan to sticking to Geometry Dash videos. Thanks for the question. Robotech asked the next questions. I've already answered their first, so I will just skip right to the second. What TV shows and songs give me nostalgia? I can say that for sure the Pokemon Black and White anime definitely gives me a lot of nostalgia, and going back and watching it is always an awesome experience. Songs that give me nostalgia are pretty much every Pokemon soundtrack ever, and a lot of Eden's music. I was a fan of Eden before Kermal used his song in XO. But yeah, those all give me nostalgia, and I hope that satisfies your question. Thank you. Next are some questions from Redshift. I've already answered two of them, but the last one is one I thought was pretty interesting, so I decided to include it. They asked what I absolutely hate and love about the Geometry Dash community, and I thought this would be cool to answer. Something I have never liked about the GD community is the toxicity. I know it seems like such a generic gripe, but there's always just have to be those people that kind of ruin the community-wide interaction for everyone. This not only destroys the fun, but it also makes people mad, which in turn just starts fights and gets everyone frizzled. I doubt this will ever change, and I know complaining about it won't really do anything, but it's just something I could really do without. On the other hand, something I really like about the community is the times when we do come together, whether it be for some huge event or a big verification. These moments, I think, are what makes being in the community worth it, despite all the struggles we go through. Anyway, thank you for the question, it was fun to think about. Reganati asked the next question, which is what caused me to blow up in subs. Well, I think it's a mixture of two things: consistent uploads and relevant topics. When starting out, I put in my full effort to upload as consistently as I could, and that's where my 1-week upload schedule came from. If I'm honest, this wasn't done for the purpose of putting out a lot of videos to be watched, as much as it was because the algorithm favors consistent channels, and I figured it was the best way to get attention fast. I also tried to play off relevant topics in the community, as those nearly always get more attention, and my first big video is where I discussed Azure Flare and the whole situation surrounding it. I believe I hit 1K off of that video, and I've been growing pretty consistently ever since, with some ups and downs along the road. If any of you guys want to do YouTube, especially in Geometry Dash, I recommend following these protocols, as they'll probably get you the most growth as fast as possible. Anyway, I know I kinda went a little bit too deep into that question, but I think it was interesting, and it was fun to answer. Thank you. Eli Gabret asked the next question. They wonder what my plans are for the future, both for Geometry Dash and YouTube. For GD, I want to keep creating and building layouts, and if school is likely to impede my progress here, I want to continue to make art, finish layouts, and eventually complete my solo level. I don't plan on quitting anytime soon, so rest assured in that regard. My plans for the future of YouTube are to continue doing what I'm doing, and if anything gets in the way of that, I will adapt and keep going. One day I want to hit 10,000 subscribers. That would be absolutely mind-blowing to me, and I want to continue to work until I get there. I'm already over halfway to it, and the fact that it's not out of the realm of possibility is so cool to think about. Thank you for the question. Next is a question asking if I plan to release a level soon, coming from Laser Sword. The art collab in question that he mentions is something that was planned a very long time ago, and it's pretty much died since then. But I do think it was an important step in my creating career to further my style and know-how of the editor. Like I said earlier in this video, I'm working on a solo level right now, and I also have my mega collab, Present, which is in the works. Both of these aren't expected anytime soon, and it'll likely be a long time before either of them see the light of day, but I hope I can get them released. So yeah, thanks for the question. Ender asked the next question, which is how I stay motivated to keep making videos. If I'm honest, it's you guys. Knowing that I have an audience that is somewhat looking forward to my uploads for me really makes me want to do my best, and this relationship only improves as my audience expands. The more you guys I reach, the better content I want to make, and recently I've been pushing myself really hard to make the best possible videos I can. It wasn't always easy to stay motivated in the beginning, especially when I didn't have the name of attention. But I just told myself that if I ever did want to get some recognition, I would just have to put in the effort now instead of later, as it would get easier further down the line. That's just kinda how YouTube is, and for anyone trying to start out, I would say just keep reminding yourself of that and try to be grateful for the small audience you do have, as once you start to get spiteful of not getting any viewers, that's when your YouTube career will fail. That being said, it is really hard to get off the ground, and I understand what it's like to have to pay your dues, but it's something that everyone has to get through if they want to succeed. Sorry that I might have gone a bit too deep into that one, but it's an interesting question, and I'm always happy to help out any up-and-coming GD YouTubers. Thank you. Call Me Shonen asked the next questions. The first is if I mind doing a face reveal, and I don't plan on doing one anytime soon. Maybe for 10,000 subscribers or something, but for now I would like to keep that private. I already answered the second question, so I'll just skip to the third. What's my favorite part about video making? Honestly, it's seeing everything come together. After putting in all the work to get a video concept, do research, gather information, get down ideas, write the script draft, revise it, and edit and voice the video, seeing all the effort come together is very satisfying. Certain ideas are very intimidating and messy at first, and slowly putting everything together and making a finished product is definitely my favorite part about every video I make. Thanks for the question. QnA is up next, and they ask a very interesting question. Back in my Level Spotlight 4 video, I mentioned that I like death metal, and with that not being the most expected thing based on my personality, they are wondering if there's anything else unexpected about me. Well, I love anime, so that could be one thing you might not expect, and I've always been into what people might call edgy stuff, even though I don't like to think of it like that, whether it's art or music or anything really. That probably goes hand in hand with me liking death metal, but it goes beyond just that. But besides those things I mentioned, most of my biggest interests are probably to be expected, like reading and writing and Pokemon. But yeah, thank you for the question, it was a really good one. Spark Hendery is up next, and they ask if I have any tips to give on script writing. The biggest thing I can say is revise, as that'll get rid of most awkward places in your writing. But beyond that, I like to structure my script somewhat like how you would do an essay in school. Have an introduction with some sort of claim, give reasoning that connects to the evidence you have, then give your evidence and tie it up. This can be a format that spans the entire video, or you can make a bunch of mini essays for each section of your script. When making a sort of claim, I always like to create it based on the evidence I have, not make a claim and then try and find evidence for it. That will always make your claim stronger, as it will be directly supported by your evidence. This actual formatting of my videos script-wise is something I'm still improving at, and I'm definitely not the best, as I tend to leave in a lot of unneeded fluff, but I'm still working on it. The thing I personally think I am best at is actual writing mechanics, such as making words sound good and fancy, and that's just something you have to learn from reading and writing a lot. Like I said, I've been reading and writing with a passion for basically all my life, and that's kinda why I think it's what I'm best at when I come to script writing. That isn't to sound egotistical at all, though, as I definitely have a long way to go when it comes to how much I can improve from here. Thank you for the question, I hope I could help. The next question asks about something I wish I knew before I started my GD/YouTube career, and this is coming from CounterCurve5. Honestly, I think everything I've learned along the way as I've been in and around the Geometry Dash community and done YouTube has come in due time, and I don't necessarily think there's one thing I wish I knew before I began either. That's not to say I haven't learned a lot, as I definitely have, but it's all come naturally and I think it's better that way, as I can say I've gotten more out of it. Sorry if that's not a satisfactory answer to your question, but it's the best I can give you, so I hope you don't mind. Thanks. Apero is up next. They ask what things I enjoy besides YouTube and gaming, and I've already touched on that a bit earlier from other questions, but I can go into a bit more detail here. I'd say besides video games, the biggest passion I have is music, and I like to compose my own works alongside consuming all sorts of genres. It's a huge part of my life, and whenever I'm working or riding in the car or doing some sort of idle task, you can often find me listening to some sort of music in the background. I have certain songs I like to listen to as background music, and then there's some I like to give my full attention to while listening, and I often will just sit down at my kitchen table and listen to music, which my family finds pretty weird. I also play cello, which I have done for 7 years now, and I practice that every day and also compose my own works to play for myself. I really enjoy cello, and the feeling of being able to play an instrument and sound good is one that I haven't managed to find doing anything else. On top of music, I also love to read and write. Reading is such a huge part of my life, as I think being able to step into a whole separate world and experience things circumstances would never allow in your own life is not only a very cool thing to do, but also a very good way of learning lessons and applying them to your own life. I write a lot too, whether it's poems, short stories, or working on a longer story I've been writing for a while now. I think I might have went a bit too far into detail on those, so I hope you don't mind, but that question did just really get me going on a tangent. Thank you. Next is a pretty deep set of questions from UU. They ask where I have been, where do I think I am now, and where do I want to go? This is a pretty open-ended question, and they say I can take it from any perspective, so I think the most fitting way for me to approach it is to look at it from the angle of my Geometry Dash career. When I first started playing GD, I was a pretty bad player who wanted to improve, and one who would have given anything to beat an Extreme D when I get a rated level. I love GD YouTube, and though I never dreamed at the time that one day I would be the one up on the stage talking into the video, I've always had a passion for it. Of course, today a lot has changed from that. I have an awesome YouTube channel with an audience of over 6,000 awesome people, and that's something I never expected to happen. I still haven't beaten an Extreme or gotten a rated level, but I have improved significantly in both playing and creating, and I reckon one day it could happen. One thing has changed in my goal of a rated level, though. I don't want just any rated level, which I would have been happy with back when I first started playing, as instead I want a level that will be remembered. Of course, with this in mind, I think it's pretty clear where I want to go in the next few years regarding Geometry Dash. One day, I hope I can beat an Extreme Demon and make a memorable level, and for my channel, I hope I can further my audience and continue to make videos that you guys enjoy. But then again, maybe my career will take an incredibly unexpected twist just like it did when I started doing YouTube. Only time will tell. That was a pretty intense question, but I enjoyed getting into it and talking about my plans, so thank you. Here's a quick question compared to the last one. Crippy wonders if I can wish them luck on Cataclysm, and of course I can. Good luck, dude. I hope you can beat it. Make sure to give it your best. Sebtion asked the next few questions. The first is what and who my all-time favorite level and creator are, and like I've mentioned earlier in the video, those honors go to Nightlife and Para. They also ask what game I would move my content to if Geometry Dash were to die tomorrow, and like I mentioned earlier in the video, I would either make Bed Wars videos or do Pokemon stuff. The final question is what my thoughts on Galvatron and Notsar's creators, and they think they are both amazing. Galv was a really big influencer of modern day effect works, and I really respect him for that, and Nots has an incredibly unique style that only he can make look as good as it does. Thank you for your questions. The next question is half a repeat, but the second part of it is one that I surprisingly have not seen much of, but it was the first I noticed, so I'll answer it here. Kanye Southeast asks how old I am, and the answer is 15. I won't be 16 for a few months yet, and yeah, I'm definitely not the oldest of the YouTubers in this community. Thanks for the question. Snowman asked the next question, which is where I see myself in a few months or in a year relating to Geometry Dash. In a few months, I hope I can maybe be on my way to hit 10,000 subscribers, and I also hope to have released 1 or 2 layouts alongside having made good progress on my solo level. I've already talked about how I keep my motivation for YouTube, but he asked specifically how I keep motivated for GD, so I will answer that. Honestly, I just love building in Geometry Dash, and there really aren't too many times where I have to force myself to build stuff. My biggest constraint that impedes my progress is just lack of time. So yeah, I think the biggest thing that helps me enjoy building is that I never really force myself to work on things, and I just do them when they come naturally, which also helps me make the best possible works I can. Hopefully that answers your question, and thank you. Next are 2 questions from Mike Chell. They first asked what is my level or layout that I am most proud of, and I would definitely say the answer is Present. It's for sure my most fun and well-made layout, and while Shinjiro took me longer, it's a lot more unpolished because of its length. One day, I might go back and remaster Shinjiro, as there are a lot of parts I would like to revamp entirely and there are a ton of things I want to fix, but that's only an idea. Mike Chell also asked what grade I am in, and I'm in 10th grade, or my sophomore year of high school. Thanks for the question. Next up is a set of questions from EG Game Night. The first is what my creating skill is like in Geometry Dash, and I guess I can show on screen some of my other works besides the solo level I showed earlier. I'm not the best creator of all time, but I'm doing my best to improve, and hopefully I can make some cool stuff in the future. They also asked what brought me to the GD community, which I already answered, so I'll just skip to their third new question. Which is my favorite type of soda? My favorite soda is definitely Sprite. It's just always tasted the best to me, and I'm not really a big fan of most others out there. Thank you. Our next question to discuss is from the only XS1, who asked what my friends think of my channel. I'll take this as referring to my real life friends, and there's a pretty varying opinion on it. I've had some really cool friends who, despite not knowing anything about Geometry Dash, have supported me in what I do since the very start, and have listened to me drone on about things they don't care about for hours. I really appreciate those friends, and because of the growth I've gotten, more people outside of them have realized I have a channel, and for some of my friends it's kind of a joke that I do Geometry Dash YouTube, but I don't mind. So yeah, overall I would say my friends think it's really cool that I run a YouTube channel, and some of them are more interested than others, despite none of them actually caring about Geometry Dash. I already answered the second question, so hopefully that was a good answer to your first. Thank you. Robin Rutner asked the next 3 questions, but unfortunately I've already answered the first 2, so I'm just going to skip right to the third. This question is how much time I've spent on GD, and on Steam it's about 3,000 hours, but I played on a cracked version of Geometry Dash for my first year on PC, so I probably have about 500 hours on that, combined with probably about 1,000 hours for mobile. So a rough estimate, probably about 4.5k hours. It's a pretty hefty amount, but I know it's somewhat tame compared to what some people have invested in the game, so it's nothing super special. Hopefully that answers your question. Up next is a question from Alfiero, which is a pretty interesting one. Paraphrasing what they wrote, they ask if it's at all demotivating that commentary videos in Geometry Dash are on a decline while stream highlights are on a huge rise. And honestly, I don't think GD commentaries are on a decline at all. Yes, stream highlights are much bigger and reach a wider audience, but it's just more mainstream content, and I understand that I won't get as many views as those videos with content like I make. I'm at peace with it, and it's something that you have to accept if you want to make videos in this style, and I think that for the portion of people who do watch them, it's worth it. Back to my point about commentaries not being on a decline, I think they are once again on the uprising, with people like Elfritz and other channels contributing greatly to this. I'm not sure if we will ever see commentaries overtake stuff like stream highlights, but there's definitely a very reasonable demand for these types of videos still, and I don't get much demotivation from seeing other channels do well for the most part, as I'd rather feel happy for them and focus on how I can improve myself. Hopefully that answers your question. It was a pretty interesting one. Next are a few questions from that one pesky fox. I've already answered a few of them, but there are some interesting ones, so I will address those. The first I haven't talked about is if I have any pets, and the answer is yes. I have a 10-year-old dog and a 3-year-old lizard, and I'll show some pictures of them in the background right now. Their names are Zoe and Larry respectively, and they're pretty cool. The other question from them that I haven't answered is if I am more of a player or creator, and I would definitely say at this point in my career I am more of a creator. I rarely play the game anymore, and while I want to beat an extreme one day, I spend much more time and find a lot more enjoyment in creating. Thank you for the questions. Next are some questions from Tesla GM, and I've already answered the first, but the second I find pretty interesting, so I decided to include it. This question is what message I'm trying to send to the viewer, and in my normal videos, I don't really have one. I guess my goal is to simply entertain and inform. But I guess in stuff like my level spotlight videos, the message I'm trying to send is that works of art in Geometry Dash come in so many different forms, and recognizing them all takes an open mind and a willingness to attempt to understand different aspects of creating. If I had to send a message relating to my overall channel, I'd probably say that if you're passionate about something, believe that you'll eventually get recognition for it if you keep pushing, and it'll happen. Other than that, I don't really have much else in the form of underlying themes, so if you're going to take anything from my videos, I guess it would be those things. Thanks for the interesting question. Xstep asks a pretty unique question next, which is what my least favorite level is. This is a toughie, but I'd probably say it's either Thinking Space or EXO. Pretty short answer, but yeah, those levels just really do not sit well with me. Thank you for the question. Next is a pretty cool question from Zeroff, which is what player and/or creator I respect the most. I think I already established this in this video multiple times, but the creator I respect the most for their work is Para, but I haven't talked about that in regards to a player. If I had to answer that, I'd probably say Mulzy, because of his down-to-earth approach to things and incredible determination. He's just overall a really cool guy on top of being incredibly skilled, and he's a great personality in the community. Thanks for the question. Niles X is up now. Their question is what I think of 1.0 styled levels and their whole trend, and honestly, I'm not really a big fan. I think there have been a few examples of 1.0 style levels that have come out really nicely and are definitely awesome works, but for the most part I don't really like the whole 1.0 style thing. There really isn't enough in the editor to build on old concepts like you can do with making 1.9 style decoration nowadays, and that's why I feel like they are all just kind of the same. Like I said, people have done some cool stuff, but overall it's a trend that I tend to sleep on most of the time. Hopefully that is a satisfactory answer. Our good friend Colorbowl asked the next question, which is what was the most difficult video for me to write/research. I would say either my level history episode on Tartarus for research difficulty and my latest video, who was the best GD player of all time, for writing difficulty. It took me a stupidly long amount of time to write all the script over for that vid, as it's nearly an hour long, and it's definitely the most effort I've put into a video ever. On the other hand, I had to do a ton of independent research for my Tartarus video, and gathering all the dates and information wasn't too hard, but I would say it's the most difficult out of all my videos so far. My level spotlight videos are probably the second hardest for me to write, as they can get pretty exhausting to keep going with. And while I really enjoy making them, they drain me the most out of any other type of video. Hopefully that answers your question, Colorbolt. It was a good one. Next is The Pig, who has a pretty interesting name and profile picture, and they ask how I came up with unique ideas for videos. If I'm honest, it's not like I have some master list of things I plan to do, even though I do keep some ideas ready for the future. For the most part, though, I come up with ideas on the spot and start writing them right away. When it comes to how I actually come up with them, I try to think of things that I find interesting in the GD community or different aspects of the game, and see if I can turn those into interesting ideas for a video. I often get my best ideas when I'm out walking, and somehow, whenever I really need an idea and I'm on a nature walk, I get one. That's how I conjure most of the time, but other ideas will just hit me out of nowhere even when I'm not in need of one, and those I tend to save for later. This is a really interesting question, so I hope I answered it well, and thank you. Toby Productions asked the next question, which is what Decker style I think is underrated. If I'm honest, I think modern is really underrated, especially when it comes to creators like Neijifu. Levels like Ambu by them and some other works done by other creators are honestly some of the coolest levels in the game, and while I think there are some pretty lazy modern works out there, there's a lot of well done stuff that I don't think gets enough recognition. Modern gets bashed a lot for being lazy, like I said, but I think we need to start recognizing the more deserving works that are definitely out there. Thanks for the question. The next question is how I make such long scripts, asked by Only Trying. If I'm honest, I don't do it consciously. I just write all the stuff I feel is necessary to include in the video that I jotted in my planning phase, and from there the script comes out however long it needs to be to include everything I wanted to say. If you haven't noticed, the lengths of my videos vary dramatically, and again, that's because I don't aim for a specific amount of time for my videos, I just write what needs to be written. Hopefully that's a good answer to your question. Dragon48100 asked a question that I honestly expected more of, but they're the only person I saw who asked it. This question is what video I'm most proud of, and it's definitely my latest, who is the best GD player of all time. I spent hours upon hours planning, scripting, writing, revising, and editing that project, and while it could have been improved in some spots, I would say it's definitely my most polished and well-written video. Don't worry, that won't be a one-time thing either. From here on out, I hope I can make all my videos with that writing and voicing quality, while also making improvements to the editing. Thank you for the question. And for today's final question, we have a pretty awesome one by NotLedub, who asked how I got Nswish to verify Ithacropolis circles. If I'm honest, I just randomly told him about the level one day and said he could verify it if he wanted, and he seemed all in, verifying it one day later if I recall correctly. Definitely his best achievement, like I have said many times before, and yeah, it's probably the best level in the game. Thank you for the question, and thank you for recognizing my crowning creating achievement and Nswish's crowning playing achievement. And there we go. Those are all the questions I wanted to answer from my Q&A video. I'm really sorry if I missed yours, I couldn't include them all, and it was likely I skipped over it if it was a repeat or it wasn't something I really felt like answering. I really enjoyed answering all of these, so thank you guys for the amount of questions you gave me. I really hope we can take my channel beyond 5,000 subscribers, and this is my second big milestone after 1K, so I really can't thank you guys enough for how much support you've given me. I have a pretty awesome video coming out in the next few weeks, so definitely stay tuned for that, and I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about me. I thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.